Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Silent Hill podcast. I haven't done one of these a while, and it's only because I haven't really gotten around to watching the rest of the Silent Hill 2 video game. So, this past week, I thought I would work on it some more, and I've seen a little bit more of it. I just have a tiny portion left before I finish the entire game itself, and I'll talk about the rest of it here. It's still a little bit trying when it comes to this game. It doesn't seem like it's, I don't know. I'll give my final thoughts on it later on, so be on the lookout for that. But this one is a unique villain of sorts. It's a unique monster in the sense that it's actually a person, and the person that I'm talking about is this guy, Eddie Dombrowski, and he has the distinction of being the very first monster, but human-like monster, just completely human, or in some cases the villain or the boss that you face within the Silent Hill series. Obviously, like the first Silent Hill had some humans in them that were bad guys as well, but they didn't necessarily have a chance to take on the main character one-on-one. Here, though, in Silent Hill 2, this guy, this Eddie guy, he becomes the first human boss in terms of a villain that you fight within the series. So it was quite fascinating to see it. And he doesn't turn into a monster altogether. He doesn't, let's say, shift into another otherworldly creature of some sort. No, he's just a 100% plain human that happens to be caught in all the melee associated with Silent Hill. And then just by pure chance, his interactions eventually lead him to becoming an enemy to the main character. By the way, he's a pretty tragic character, this guy Eddie. I thought they did a very good job, the developers, with regards to making sure that Eddie's story was fleshed out throughout the entire game. Because when you first meet him in the game, you meet him at a place in Silent Hill, one of those endless apartment rooms, and he's there throwing up. It's too overwhelming for him because he's there, he's scared, he's very nervous at the fact that he's basically in a place that he's completely unfamiliar with. He comes across this guy James, and he's trying to convey innocence with regards to whoever was there in that room that was already dead. So that's how you start out with him, and then by the end of the game, for him to now be 100%, let's say, confident and ready to take on anyone that he considers a bully. They did a very good job leading from point A to point B and fleshing it out all the way in between. So yeah, that was the first encounter with this guy Eddie in the game. Later on, he's found in that bowling alley of sorts, and he's there with the other, I guess you'd call main character, that little girl Laura. And again, he's just trying to get along, just trying to get by, trying to get out of Silent Hill. And I guess it's considered a peaceful time when he's found again, because there he is eating some pizza and just trying to understand everything that's going on. James meets him there again. They talk a little bit. No malice, nothing in terms of him again, let's say, turning into the villain later on. But at that point, he's so, I guess, overwhelmed that he's almost at a point of peace, because I remember in the game, this guy James was trying to have this guy Eddie come out with him, but no, Eddie at that point he's just going to stay there in the bowling alley and just peacefully eat what pizza he has. And so that was a unique situation with regards to him. And then finally, the next time that Eddie finds him, he's still in some area. I think it was at the prison that's where he was found, and yet again there was some other body of sorts that was lying nearby. He was claiming his innocence, but he was saying at the same time, and you can tell that he was kind of turning a little bit at that point, stating that whoever this person was kind of had it coming to him because he was making fun of him. That's one thing that Eddie absolutely hated. You could tell by his body image, and then by his posture and by his mannerisms. The developers made it seem like he was bullied most of his life, and he was getting to a point where he was getting tired of it. And so he was not right to the point yet where he was 100% villain, but you could see that there he was at a location where he was actually starting to retaliate. Although I believe it did say that that the corpse, he said that the corpse was already there afterward. He came across it on his own, but for a little brief couple of minutes there, he was trying to take credit for the corpse, kind of building his confidence and trying to make sure that with his bravado he's no longer going to be bullied. But then he still is not 100% quite there, because he later said that it was actually a corpse that was right then at the location that James walked into, that the corpse was already there, it was already dead. And then finally, the very final step, and this was when James, in a weird, unique way, and I love this touch with the Silent Hill 2 developers, you kind of get to see what Eddie's version of Silent Hill is. So there's this sequence in the game, another one of those sequences involving endless, just boring apartments, room after room, panel after panel, quarter after quarter, and then it finally leads to this kind of cafeteria of some sort. And when he's there, I'm sorry, not a cafeteria, it's like a freezer of some sort. And when he's there, it's a meat locker. And apparently, this is actually how Eddie sees Silent Hill, or this quote unquote other world. This is how he sees it. And in his world, everything that he sees is very frigid. It resembles a meat locker. It's supposed to allude to his love of food, in terms of his other world involving lots of meat hanging everywhere left and right. So while, let's say, James's other world involves lots of dark, rotting apartments with lots of sexual innuendos, this guy, Eddie's other world, involves meat lockers or food or coldness, because that's what he's been feeling his entire life. It seems like he's had all those people acting to him in a very, very cold manner. So it was very interesting to see that this was the peek into his other world, because again, with the world of Silent Hill, every person that goes into it experiences a different world, a different universe than the person next to them. And by this point, this is when Eddie, he's at full point, almost a villain. I mean, he practically is right then and there. He has, yet again, there's another corpse, and then James is telling him, I think the thing that set him off said, like, Eddie, are you crazy? Or Eddie, are you nuts? And that's when this guy, Eddie, decided, you know what? James is also making fun of me. He too is a bully. And then Eddie happens to have a gun, and then that's when he full on decides to attack James. So it was quite fascinating again to see the whole stretch of this character, from being an innocent person of sorts, just tragically caught in Silent Hill, to full-blown being, let's say, the bad guy and a boss that James has to survive and shoot at. It was a great set of turns. Also, with regards to this guy Eddie, it seems like, and this is straight from one of the developers of the game, I believe the guy, Masahiro is his name, he stated that all the bodies that we saw within Silent Hill 2, those are just delusions that this guy Eddie came up with. So they're not real bodies, they're not other people that were within Silent Hill, let's say drawn to Silent Hill just like these guys were. No, these are all illusions. So that makes things even more tragic, because when you think about it, at the end of it all, Eddie and everything that he said throughout the entire game, he kept alluding to shooting that football player in the knee, and that these corpses were somehow tied to him. In actuality, he only killed one thing, and that was the dog. And that's what led him to go to Silent Hill. He was trying to escape the fact that he just murdered an animal. But he didn't actually kill any humans. And so that's what makes it even more tragic. It's the idea that here he is, almost in some cases, I don't know if it's his insanity or if it's him truly believing it, but he thinks that sometimes he killed those other people when he didn't, and it was maybe just Silent Hill manipulating him. And so that led him further into his insanity, which led to his eventual demise at the hands of James. So quite a fascinating and very tragic set of turns when it comes to this guy, Eddie Dombrowski. Now, as far as a little bit of concept art, you'll see that some of it is here. Great sketch. You can tell that what they went with at the very beginning, from the concept sketch all the way to the end, very, very little change. It was basically straight from the sketch into the game itself. And apparently on the trivia side, the way that Eddie looks, the way his, I guess, body is, his larger size, it's actually based on one of the people that was a friend of one of the creators of Silent Hill 2. So quite interesting. I wonder if this friend ever knew that he's in the game. For all intents and purposes, like he is this guy Eddie. Also, when it comes to this guy Eddie, again, he was the first bad guy, the bad human guy that was found within the game. There may be an apartment that was tied to him. I don't know, in essence, if he was there too long in Silent Hill to live in one of the apartments, but most likely, I think his apartment in the real world kind of morphed into Silent Hill. And there's an apartment room, again, in one of those endless apartment rooms that's found in one of those places, and you'll find bullet marked walls, and then you'll find some guns nearby, and so that could be him in terms of his room, or a perception of his room from the real world as he was practicing. He's supposed to also be based, I don't know if it's loosely, I don't know if it's by sheer accident, but he's supposed to be based on some of the characters, on some of the real life people, those guys that were involved in the Columbine High School massacre. So Eddie's character may be inspired by them in the sense that they were bullied and they decided to take some action against everyone around them. Obviously this guy, the way he was presented, Eddie, he was bullied throughout all his life, so he decided to take some action as well. So that could be a loose inspiration too. The only other instance really that Eddie comes out, because his character has only been in Silent Hill 2, nothing else within the entire series. But if you get a certain achievement in Silent Hill Homecoming, it's called Eddie's Legacy, and it has to do with the fact that the very first time you kill one of those mutant dogs, or one of those Silent Hill dogs within Silent Hill Homecoming, then you achieve that legacy called Eddie's Legacy. Obviously, it's supposed to pay tribute to Eddie, who shot and killed that dog in Silent Hill 2, which led him to run to Silent Hill 2 out of grief, out of embarrassment, out of guilt, whatever, and eventually led to his demise. So, quite fascinating history of this guy Eddie, and hopefully we'll be able to see more of him somewhere within Silent Hill, who knows how many other video games, or potentially some other works like in the movies. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.